Welcome back to Knit Your Stress Away. My name is Nadine, and we are in the middle of our summer throwback series right here on the podcast. What does that mean? If you're just now tuning in, we are going back in time of the last year and a half of this podcast, and we're bringing back a few episodes over the course of July that were downloaded quite often. So I'm hoping this will give you a nice recap of the things that we have talked about here on the podcast, and also will bring you back to some episodes that you may have loved in the past. Today's episode was such a fun one. It isn't that long ago. It's the original episode 83. And today we're actually at 99 episodes, which is fantastic. We're almost at 100 episodes. It's so exciting. And this one was about the app that every knitter needs with the founder of the Knit and Note app, Anne Emilie Fosse. And it was such a great interview. She has created this tool for this industry that is now, I can't even think of not using it for my daily knitting. I literally almost use it every single day. You can keep all your patterns in there, and it's just such a great app. So get ready to be completely amazed by the app that she has created with her husband and her little team all the way from Norway. And yeah, if you are looking for some of the links in these episodes, in these older episodes, they may not be available. Just so you know, you can find everything at theknittingmamas.com. And I hope you enjoyed this interview. Hey mamas, and welcome back to Knit Your Stress Away. If you've ever wished for an easier way to keep track of your knitting patterns, your supplies, and your projects, then you're going to love today's episodes. I am so excited. As a busy mom, I know how important it is to have everything in one place. And the Knit and Note app has been a total game changer for me. You may have heard me talk about it in the past. This app actually keeps me completely organized with my knitting projects. It helps me keep track of my projects, and it honestly just makes knitting that much more enjoyable. I am beyond excited to have the creator of the Knit and Note app, Anne Emilie Fosse, on the podcast today. She's not only a fellow knitter, but also a brilliant entrepreneur who saw a need in the knitting community and then built an app that solves so many of our struggles. Today, we're diving into her own knitting journey, what inspired Knit and Note, and what's next for the app. So grab your knitting, grab some tea, get ready. This is a conversation that you do not want to miss. Welcome to Knit Your Stress Away. I am Nadine Medina, a mom who rediscovered knitting during a stressful season and found it to be the ultimate way to relax, recharge, and reconnect with myself. If you're feeling overwhelmed and wondering if there's a creative outlet that could actually help you feel calmer and in more control, you're in the right place. In this podcast, I'll show you how knitting can be a simple stress-busting tool, even if you've never picked up needles before. So take a deep breath, let go of the chaos for a moment, and let's explore how knitting could become your new favorite way to find calm and joy. Hey friend, quick heads up before we head into today's episode. I have got something really fun coming your way soon, and if your phone's been getting more attention than your knitting needles lately, you'll definitely want in. It's called the Phone Down Needles Up Challenge. It's a 5-day reset to help you swap screen time for stitch time. We're keeping it super simple, super fun, and super doable, even if your days are completely full. I will be sharing all the details next week right here on the podcast, so be sure you stay tuned, hit subscribe on the podcast, and tune in next week as well. And now, enjoy today's interview. All right. Hello, and welcome to the Knit Your Stress Away podcast. Anne Emilie, how are you doing today? I'm so glad you're here.
I'm doing really good. Thank you so much. Nice to be here.
Yes, thank you so much for your time to be on this podcast. I am so excited to talk to you today about your app called Knit and Note, which, how long has it been around now?
I was actually thinking about it earlier today. I think it's 4 years since I got the idea, while it was my maternity leave with my child number 2, and like 3.5 years since we launched the app. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's fantastic. And you have really grown, as from what we can see here on the outside. And when I look at your Instagram, it just feels like it's kind of exploded, which is so exciting for you guys. I am excited to talk to you about all kinds of things, primarily the app and how it's useful for, people out there who are knitters who might even are thinking about becoming a knitter. I feel like they need to just get the app right away. And we'll get into all of that. And then, of course, about, how knitting is part of your life and how you weave it in for mindfulness, stress relief, all those good things. But I wanted to kind of start with the beginning, really, and ask you how you first got into knitting and what kind of gave you the idea to start this app? And if you want to give a little, kind of like a little overview of what the app actually does for people, I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah, sure. So from the beginning, back to when I started knitting, I was actually just 7 years old. And I remember the feeling of, as a child, people ask you, oh, what do you like to do on your spare time? And what are your hobbies, interests? Like, do you play football? And I'm like, no, I don't play football. I'm not good at sports. What do I actually do? And like hang out with friends. and and when I started to knit during like while still being a child, I felt like when making stuff like knitting or painting anything, I felt like that was like I found my true self, kind of like this is something I'm actually good at, and it felt like it's something I can actually master and accomplish, which was a
Yeah.
really good thing. Yeah. And it started from there, just, knitting. Like, I think I actually made a skirt for myself and a vest during when, what is called primary school. Is that what you call it in US? Yeah.
Elementary school in the US.
Elementary
Yeah. Uh-huh.
elementary school. Yeah. And yeah, so I started quite early, but then when I became a mother, that was when it really like kicked off. They needed a full wardrobe for like with clothes for every age, and they grow so fast. So, your needles are just spinning. Like, yeah, it felt like I had like a lot during that time. And that was when I also got the idea for the app, because I had like hundreds of patterns stored on my phone. Some of them were still in my mailbox, and some were on Dropbox. Like, they were everywhere, and I'm not very good at keeping like order and organize my stuff. So I was like, oh, where's that pattern? I couldn't find it. It was so annoying that I started like, oh, maybe there's something I can use, like a knitting app or service, anything where I can, keep my patterns in one place. And yeah, I started to look for that, and obviously I knew about Ravelry, but I had also heard that it was not very like user friendly, and it's not an app, it's a website and all that
Right.
stuff. So I actually didn't look much into it, because Ravelry isn't that big in Norway, actually. And I started to look on App Store instead, and I found like row counter apps and some like how to read charts apps, but not like a place where I gather everything I needed in one place. So that's when I remember my husband was in another floor in our house, and I finally got an idea. Like, we've been
You're
discussing
screaming
it.
across the house.
Yeah. We've been discussing it for a while. Like, I spent so much money on yarn, and he as a business developer, just like, how can we make money on this instead of, you using all our money on yarn?
Money for yarn.
Yeah.
That is every knitter's conversation with their
Yeah.
husband or significant other.
Yeah.
There
I
are a lot
think
of
so.
jokes about that. I like that. That's awesome. And I just think that you kind of hit the nail on the head when you say you wanted everything in one place. Because when and I'm just remembering back when I first found the app in the App Store, it's a similar story. Because I was like, okay, I have all these printed out patterns everywhere. I have a big binder full of them, but it was a little bit of a pain when I was trying to take it with me somewhere where I wanted to, when I took my kids to activities or, all the places that we always talk about where you take your knitting. And I was like, okay, now I have this clipboard with a piece of paper and a pen, and something gets lost or it's very bulky. And I started looking for just an app. And I found row counters too, which is convenient. So that's one part of it, right? But then I came across your app and it was still in the beginning stages. So it wasn't quite built out, but it had all the features listed. So it was saying like, oh, we're going to have, a place where we have your patterns. You can upload your own patterns. You can, get some from this and that place, but you will have a library for patterns. You can keep track of your yarn stash. You can keep track of your needles, and you can count rows, and you can look at your patterns, and you can annotate them and all these things. And I was like, wow, that sounds exactly like what I'm looking for. So I was so excited about finding your app. And it feels like you guys just keep adding more features to it as well. Are you planning, like, are you taking, kind of, I guess, feedback from people who are using it, or do you have a whole list of ideas that you're kind of working your way through? Because it takes time to build it, I'm assuming.
Yeah. So first of all, when you say all these things, it's hard for me even still to believe that, oh, we actually made this thing. And it's so nice to hear because it still means a lot to get that kind of feedback. So thank you very much.
I use it every day. Every day. And it's the best thing.
Thank you.
My listeners, so anybody who is listening to this episode right now, for the first time, this is the first time you're hearing me talk about this app. But if you've listened to this podcast for just a couple episodes, you're going to have already heard me talk about the Knit and Note app, because I do recommend it, especially for beginners, because you can quite literally from the very start just keep yourself organized with all your stuff before it kind of gets out of hand, like you were explaining. And I'm not even knitting, not even half as much as you just described. So it definitely is a helper, such a lifesaver.
Yeah, so you asked about the features and how we continue to, develop the app. At the beginning, we had a lot of things that just needed to be in place before we could, move on and add on extra stuff. But we saw that, I think it was a bit more than 1 year ago, we added a new premium subscription with a pattern library where you pay a monthly fee and get access to all the patterns in the library. And we saw that we needed to prioritize features that could also give us income, because, when you make the dream app that you need for yourself, but if people are not willing to pay for the features, how are you going to be a sustainable business, right? So we needed to find money where we also could earn money. So that's when we launched the premium subscription. And then we also launched a yarn shop inside the app this fall, which is also a part of the, you want everything in one place, but also we need something to, to get our income from. So I kind of feel like we haven't been able to prioritize the core features in the app very much for the last 1.5 years. It's almost just been about the pattern library and the yarn sales and everything. So this fall, we decided that we needed to do something with the developing team, because we had been outsourcing the developing, and we kind of felt like it was a mismatch on what they did and what we needed for the app. Like the whole week, the whole picture, they kind of saw just small parts that they were working on, and was starting to become so big that when they didn't think about the whole picture while developing things, it could easily become bugs other places, and it started to feel like things didn't work as they should. It wasn't good enough quality, kind of. So we needed to invest in an in-house developing team, which we now have 3 persons, people working full-time developing the app from the technical perspective. And that has just been you haven't seen it that much in the app yet, but they are working so hard on fixing stuff and improving things you don't see, but you just want it to flow better, kind of things. So for the future, when we talk about new features, it will be easier now that we have them. They just need to do some fixing and improvements that won't be that visible first, before we can continue where we were for 1.5 years ago, when all focus were on the core features. For example, the yarn stash, there are tons of things we want to do there to improve, and I know a lot of people use the yarn stash a lot to keep track of yarn and find patterns that you can use yarn that you already have, and that is a really nice thing. But we need to make a yarn database so people won't have to add everything manually. Like that's a
That
huge.
is, yes, I love that. That's
And
so
also,
awesome. So you'll
and
just be searching for it essentially, and then you can add it to
yeah.
your library. Yeah, that's so great.
And then also when we have the yarn database, we can use that to suggest what you can make with the yarn you already have from the patterns we have in the app. So there's a lot of like connections to the different features that we still have to work on to make it even smoother, like a smoother experience. And crochet stuff as well, like the needle stash needs improvements for crochet. We need an offline version. So there's definitely a lot of things coming, and it
That's
feels like
so
we're
awesome.
in a place where we can actually do those things that we've
Focus on
been
it.
for 1.5, 2 years. Yeah. So
I
finally.
love all of that. Like that is, to me, that's so exciting. And I have one little story to kind of tell you as in regards to your support on the back end and your customer service. I had in the beginning, and I'm assuming this is probably, all those back end bugs that are needing to be fixed as you're launching something. And it's kind of interesting to be part of that as a customer as it continues to develop. It was, to me, very impressive to see on my end as the user that you guys were working, like we could tell that you were working really hard and that you were improving it as you were going. I had an issue syncing it because I use it on my iPad and I use it on my phone. And it does sync really well, but I had an issue where I was counting my rows, and then on the iPad it was not showing those rows, and I had to go back, and then I was worried that I would mix up my rows because it wasn't
Yeah,
syncing. So I
sure.
reached out, and this is a while ago. So this was way back in the beginning. And I remember I got a reply right away, and it was okay, we're gonna take care of that, and we're going to fix that. And it was fixed within a day. And I was like, wow, this is just having that and knowing that you are on the back end, just working off of the feedback that you're getting and having all these things planned. That just, I mean, it excites the heck out of me right now, just
Yeah.
hearing those things that you're saying. Because I'm like, oh, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking too, as I'm using it. Like, it would be awesome to have the database and just be able to pick the yarn and stuff. But for now, I think what my favorite thing about it is that I can. So actually, it's two things. One is that I can put in patterns that I already had, and that I can also use patterns that you provide in the app, as well as, so I can just pull them in as PDFs, right? And then when I start a new project, I can just pull from that stash. So you have a whole list, right, of your patterns. And you can just say, okay, I'm starting this one now. And then you add the pattern to it and it tracks it for you. It tells you, like, you can put the date in when you started. You can put in who it's for, if it's for yourself or for me. And 90% of the things I make are for me.
Yeah.
I feel kind of bad about it, but because you were just talking about how you knit for your children. And I'm like, yeah, that
That was
happens at
before. That was
Christmas.
before.
My kids here or there, they get like a scarf for Christmas, but everything else. But I also told you I'm not a super fast knitter. So whatever I'm making, it's mine.
Yeah, I like
But
that.
yeah, and I just love that you have all those little features in there because what it acts like, and I had an entire podcast episode that I'm going to link up underneath this one where I was talking about keeping a knitting diary or journal because it's just a nice thing to look back on later when you're like, how far have I come? Like if you're a beginner and you just want to see how much did I do this year and how big or small or complicated were these patterns and just kind of give yourself a little pat on the back, right? Like I always
Yeah.
encourage people to kind of track it. And I think this app, so I mentioned this app as one of the ways that you can track it because I think it's just so user friendly and you can have a picture of either your finished project or the one that's in the pattern, and it's so easy to see, and you can have multiple patterns going at the same time, and it's just so easy to find them. I think it's just such a great, and really it's unique. You can't really, I don't think you can find anything like it. So I think it's just lovely that you think of all these little details. But as a knitter yourself, obviously, you've run into all the issues that you're now solving with this app, and you're doing such a beautiful job with it. I do want it to kind of, I guess you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I'm just trying to, like in my head, I'm trying to imagine how big of a undertaking it must be to create an app for something specific like this, because you need more than just this idea and, one person who's like, yeah, we could do that. Like, as you just mentioned, you just brought on a team and they're making changes that are not necessarily directly visible to us as the end user. But like, what would you say were sort of the biggest challenges while you were trying to kind of bring this whole thing to life from the idea to what it is now?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think it's an important one as well, because I've been like talking a bit about it in Norway to like Norwegian newspapers and stuff. Because when you have, I was thinking like, why doesn't this already exist? I was kind of shocked, like this should already exist, right? But to be honest, like we are like most part of knitters are women, and the app is mostly used by women. Of course, there's a couple of men as well, but that's not like the main user group here. And when we are pitching for investors, which we of course needed to fund the app in the beginning, especially, most of them are men in their middle 50s and have no idea how big knitting is. So the fact that you need to kind of get them on board and explain to them like there is actually also potential for earning money and this is not just a hobby is quite big, and people spend a lot of money on their hobby. So I would say like to get people on board in the beginning was the hardest part with investors, and how to kind of describe and get them to understand. Like I, for example, have figured out it's a good example to use Strava, the app for running, as a
Yes, I've heard of that
thing
one.
to compare with.
To compare. Okay.
Yeah, because most people, or at least I'm not sure how it is in US, but in Norway, a lot of especially men use that app to track their kind of hobbies, which is running. And then they can like, oh, I understand you want to track your projects the same way that I track my running, and so that kind of helped. And I felt like it's an important thing to speak about, that like if men are the ones investing in ideas, they will invest in things they are interested in. So to get a man to invest in something that he's not at all interested in is a lot harder. and
I can
and
completely imagine that. And it's funny that you say that, because I didn't even think about that being a challenge at all. But I did think about, why does this not exist? So
yeah,
you just kind of shed some light on that. And I think that is really cool. But so glad you stuck with it. And you actually were
yeah,
able to convince them that this is going to be something that's widely used. Like, do you have a number? Like, how many downloads, or I don't even know how to measure like app success, but
yeah.
do you have stats that you want to
Yeah,
share?
sure. We have a little bit more than 200,000 users right now. So that's
Amazing.
a lot. And I was a more fun statistic to follow for us is like how many projects do people start every day, which is a quite a fun number. And right
Yes.
now it's 1,200 each day that are started. And that means like that's actual activity in the app, not only a user, but it's almost one each second that starts a new project. And that's quite cool.
I just started one yesterday.
Yay!
That is a fun number. That's so awesome.
Sorry, not each second, each minute. Sorry.
Each minute,
That's different.
yes. That is amazing. That is so, and I always encourage my listeners to have multiple projects at once, because I find it like, for example, so I didn't even mention this for those of you guys who are listening right now. You can't see us, but Anne Emilie, she's been knitting this entire time. Like, I'm not, because I feel like I'm not a multitasker. So when I'm talking about something and I'm trying to look at notes and, talk about a specific topic with someone, I'm sometimes having a hard time knitting, and especially when I look at something else other than my knitting. So she's clearly a professional over here who has done this for a lot longer than me. Although I did start when I was a kid, but I took like a 20-year break. So and like I said, I don't knit for my kids. But I just think, that is just so cool that you have all these statistics and that you can measure your success that way. And you're definitely right about the fact that there's a huge market for this, and I'm pretty sure you are just scratching the surface of, what's coming and how many people are going to use this app. Has it been like a challenge to kind of get this whole app over to this side of the world? Like, you're in Europe, and I'm sure your market is huge over there already. Especially, I feel like in the Scandinavian countries, knitting is a really big deal. And I am from Germany, so I know it's there too. But was that hard to kind of get into this market on this side? You guys are big here.
So on like from Europe, like in Scandinavia, there's only like 20 million people in total living. So it's kind of, if you see like compared to the US, the market is
Exactly.
huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we quickly kind of felt like that we needed to go over to US to be there physically and see if this is something people would need there as well. So I remember in the beginning we contacted different like people we found through Instagram and asked them like, is this something you would use? What would you need? Like what's all the stuff about yards? Everything we didn't know, like compared to meters,
Yeah.
like what would you need? Like, what would we need to adjust to fit the US market as well? And people were testing the app and giving us feedback. And then suddenly, we also did have our website where we did post blog posts. And actually, one girl from Canada, she reached out and said, like, oh, hey, I can see that your website is in English, but the English is not like very good. So I was wondering if you would like to do like a read through and improve the language. And from there, she moved to New York, and then she continued to write blog posts for us and help us translate stuff, and also, the app, like, does this work in US or the English knitting terminology?
Yes.
She helped us a lot, and she is still like working with us on the translations and everything.
That's
So
fantastic.
it's fun just how something so, people just reach out through email or via Instagram, and suddenly you have a new employee or a new
Yeah.
collab or anything, and that's really nice about the knitting community. So that's how we started going into the US, and also just with ads and reels that were going viral, and we went on VKL in New York 2 years on a row, which is also a way to kind of meet people physically. Yeah.
That's awesome. And yeah, because I really did think about that, especially that it's funny that you mentioned the knitting language and terminology. As a European myself, I came here and that I did knit, like I said, for quite a while. And then I picked it back up during the pandemic. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember how to do that. And I looked stuff up and I was trying to kind of find my supplies and the yarn and the needles. And I'm like, whoa, everything is different. Like, it never even occurred to me that I would had such trouble figuring out what I need and the needle sizes and the lengths and,
Yeah,
the
it's different.
words, the abbreviation, like everything is different. So I actually I've provided a free download for my beginner listeners, with like a little sheet that has all the terminology and stuff, because I know that it's already confusing, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
it's an easy thing to learn, but you do need to know a couple of words and you know, abbreviations in order to kind of find your way through. So I have had so many people who actually are from a different country too, and they came here and they want to knit again, and they were like, "Oh, thank goodness for this download that you made, because we really need that." So I tell them to just kind of, print it out and have it with you as you go. But I think that is
That's
just so cool to see this behind the scenes from your end, because honestly, all we do is enjoy the beauty of this app and the functionality of it, and it's just lovely. But I find it so cool to see a little bit of a behind the scenes. So thank you so much for providing us with that. I think that's super
for
cool to hear. I wanted to touch on one last thing, and this is outside of your app, but of course it's still related to knitting. And you're a mom too, but my listeners are primarily like busy, usually moms who try to turn to knitting as a way of releasing stress, or, kind of I would say, elevating their self-care, because it's not necessarily something that you think of first when you hear the word self-care. You think of meditation and yoga and whatever. But knitting is such a big self-care tool in my life. And I just kind of wanted to see if you agree with that. And if you know, now it being like your actual job, now you're knitting, for many reasons, I guess, and you added another reason, but do you still feel that way, or has that changed? Do you feel like knitting is still this like escape for you, or this, way to relax? What's your take on that?
So I've been afraid that knitting would be felt like a job, which would be quite sad because I love it so much and don't want my job to kill the fun part. So it's been important for me to make the space for, having knitting as a hobby still. But of course, I only knit patterns from our app, and I knit mostly with our own yarn and stuff. But still, I just knit because I really want to, and I still use it as motivation. Like if I just finish this computer stuff I need to do, then I can knit finally. Like it's the best thing, especially in the evening when the kids are in bed. It's dark outside, so I can't spend time taking pictures and everything for content and social media. So it's just me and my knitting, which is really I feel like it's meditation for me still. And that's also why I love to have different kind of projects at the same time, as you mentioned, because right now I'm working just in the round in stockinette stitch. I don't need to think anything. It's just relaxing to just, it's weird to sit still without knitting, basically. But it's also fun to challenge yourself, and the feeling you get when you try something new and master a new skill or technique or anything. That's also really fun and a big part of the journey. So I love to have different projects on different difficulty levels at the same time, so I can switch around just to see what fits the situation.
Yes, that's exactly what I was just thinking. It's like, depending on what I'm doing, this is the project that goes along with that, right? Because there are projects where you really have to focus, and then, you may watch TV, but you might not hear a lot of it. Like that happened to me before.
Well, I actually heard that if you need the meditation part, you should have a difficult project which doesn't allow you to do anything else at the same time. So you are only focusing on looking at what you're doing and concentrating on getting everything right. That's when it's really meditation. And if I need to, or if I want to watch TV, it's fun. It's nice to just have something in my hands, so I feel like I'm doing something useful while consuming series or anything.
It almost gives us a sense of we're being productive, right? Because we always as moms, we always feel oh wow, we're doing stuff all day and it still doesn't feel like anything has completed or has been really accomplished. And I always draw this comparison too, because I find it so cool. You really do feel like you're doing something, like you're actually creating something, and you are. So it's not just giving you an illusion of it. You really are finishing or completing something or making progress on something. And one of my favorite things is to complete something and really look at it and be like, wow, I actually made this with my own hands. So you're wearing this gorgeous pink, it's like a t-shirt. It's not really a sweater, right? And it's beautiful. And I'm assuming you made that too. I think I actually did see it in one of your reels not too long ago. What's that one called? The one you're wearing?
It's called ST Mohair edition. Yeah. So it's a tee knitted in merino and cashmere mohair.
It's so pretty. And I just find it so cool when I actually see people really, truly wearing the things that they have knitted.
Yeah.
But I always think it's such a great cross between finding something that you can truly use to relax, or like you said, to meditate, or to kind of increase your focus, because it'll translate into other areas of your life when you practice using your focus. And that's a real skill nowadays, I think. But also to, really have things that you tangibly can show and wear and use, and they're just beautiful to look at. And to me, it's the perfect hobby just for those reasons alone. And of course, like we said before, you can take it wherever you need. And now you can take the app with you because it's on your phone and you don't have anything bulky, and you can use that. You mentioned that, you have something in your hand and you just, otherwise it's kind of awkward to not do anything. I think it's so helpful because it helps us not to grab our phone and start mindlessly scrolling on social media because we're already using our hands. So all you need is the app open and place it next to you. I always when I sit on the couch, I lay it like next to my leg and then I just tap when I count the row, and it's so convenient to have your entire pattern right there in front of you in case you need to reference that as well. So
Agree.
I think yeah, it's so helpful. So let me know where people can find you, because I am hoping that everyone is just going to run to follow you, to grab the app, and to truly play around with it so you can get all the awesome features and benefits from this app, gather all their patterns, start there, and then potentially even, you have like the cutest shop in there too. You not only have yarn in there, but you also have like notions, right? Like stitch markers and there's like a little measuring tape that's really
Yeah.
cute. And you keep adding things, it looks like too. So where can we find you?
So if you can download the app, it's in App Store or Google Play, which is a good place to start. And you can always send us an email if there's anything you are missing or wondering about. We are answering the same day. And, if you want to just see a bit more about who we are, who are the persons behind, I would recommend following us on Instagram. No, yeah, on Instagram, because we share, or TikTok as well, actually, because we share a bit about ourselves and what we're knitting on, and from the community and patterns coming and designers we have on the app. And we try to, have a blend there of a mix of things that we make and from other designers and everything. So that's also a place where you can DM if you have any questions, or so reach out.
And that is it's on Instagram. It's at knit and note, just without any, and no underscore, just the words knit and note. But I'm going to pop it in the show notes as well for people to hop over if they want to follow. And I do encourage everybody to give this app a try. If you're a beginner, it's the best. If you're not a beginner, it's even better, I think, because you already have a whole load of things that you can organize that you probably need to organize. Yeah, and stash, a needle stash. I mean, you look behind
Know
me,
that
my
the app
needles are right there.
and you can know that the app is still being developed further with new features and improvements to come. So that's also something.
Yes, absolutely. And like we just talked about, you guys have wonderful customer service, and you definitely listen to, what the users are asking for. But the ideas you just mentioned, they sound amazing, and I'm so excited to see them coming to the app. But like I said, it's already wonderful to use it, and definitely one of a kind out there. So thank you so much, not only for your time today to talk to me about a little bit behind the scenes. It was so exciting to hear, but also to bring this really amazing tool to this knitting community that's like a worldwide community that you're serving. I think you've done something wonderful with that, and it's really cool to see it continue to grow and also continue to kind of add things to it that we as knitters are desperately needing. So thanks so much, and I hope you I hope you enjoy the rest of your week.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for all the kind words about the app. That's really nice.
Thanks so much for hanging out with me on today's episode. I hope you're walking away with a bit more inspiration and a few ideas to make your self-care a priority. If today's chat gave you a little boost, I'd love it if you could leave a 5-star review on iTunes. This helps other moms discover the podcast and start finding more calm and creativity in their day as well. And don't forget to join us over in the Knitting Mamas community on Facebook by going to theknittingmamas.com/group. Thanks again, and remember, you deserve time for yourself to recharge and feel your best. Catch you next time on the Knit the Stress Away podcast.